What if I told you that one of history's most famous religious paintings was painted by a man who lived among brothels and taverns? By a man who would later become a murderer. This is the story of how Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio created one of the most revolutionary paintings in Western art, and how the life he lived around it nearly got him killed. Look at this scene, Rome, 1599. A dimly lit tavern where tax collectors count their coins. Suddenly, two figures appear in the doorway, Jesus Christ and Saint Peter. Christ's hand extends toward a bearded man at the table. But here's what makes this painting absolutely revolutionary. See this light? It's not heavenly, it's not mystical. It's harsh, natural light streaming through a window. Caravaggio threw out 500 years of artistic tradition and said, what if the divine happens in the real world, with real people, in real places? These aren't biblical robes. These are contemporary 16th century Italian clothes. Caravaggio painted Jesus calling Matthew as if it was happening right there, right then, in the streets of Rome. But the story behind how this painting came to be, that's where things get dark. Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio was not your typical Renaissance artist. While other painters worked in pristine studios, Caravaggio painted in brothels and taverns. His models weren't noble patrons. They were prostitutes, street vendors, and criminals. And Caravaggio himself, he was a walking controversy. He carried a sword, he brawled in the streets. In 1606, just 7 years after painting The Calling of St. Matthew, he killed a man and fled Rome with a bounty on his head. But here's the thing that'll blow your mind. Look at Matthew's expression. That's not divine ecstasy, that's confusion, maybe even fear. He's pointing at himself as if to say, me? You want me? Caravaggio painted Matthew's calling not as a glorious moment of divine selection, but as the bewilderment of an ordinary man suddenly confronted by the extraordinary. Because Caravaggio understood something other artists didn't. Real transformation is messy, surprising, and happens to people who don't expect it. Before Caravaggio, religious art looked like this: perfect, idealized, removed from reality. Saints glowed, angels had perfect features. Heaven looked like, well, heaven. Caravaggio said, what if heaven breaks into our world instead? See Jesus' hand? Art historians have debated for centuries whether he's pointing at Matthew or calling him forward. But look closer. That hand gesture? It's nearly identical to God's hand in Michelangelo's creation of Adam on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Instead of God creating the first man, we see God calling an ordinary man into extraordinary purpose. This painting was commissioned for the Contarelli Chapel in Rome. The church wanted powerful, emotional art for the Counter-Reformation. Caravaggio gave them exactly that, so much so that while the calling was celebrated, other works of his would later be deemed too shocking. The Calling of St. Matthew changed everything. It launched the Baroque movement, influenced artists for centuries, and proved that the most profound spiritual moments don't happen in golden clouds. They happen in the everyday world, to everyday people, when they least expect it. Just like Caravaggio himself, a murderer and a genius, creating sacred art in the shadows of Rome's underworld. Art history is full of these incredible stories, where the painting and the painter's life collide in unexpected ways. Which artwork should I unravel next? Comment below with your suggestions. And if you want more stories about rebellious artists who changed the world, hit that subscribe button.